In the last lesson, we started to reorganize our code after the model view controller design pattern. We've just added the check answer method to our quiz brain. However, our code is still incomplete. So in order to make this work, we need to get our check answer function to return an output. And that output has to be either true or false, so that we can determine what color to tell the UI to change to. If we head back over to our quiz brain, let's modify our check answer function to allow for an output. And the data type is going to be a Boolean. It's either the user got it right or the user got it wrong, true or false. Now we're getting an error saying that we're missing a return in a function expected to return bool. We said that we would return an output, but nowhere in our code do we actually do that. Let's go ahead and delete these comments and return true if the user got it right and return false if the user got it wrong. Now that our function has an output, we need to catch that value at the point where we call this function, namely in our viewController.swift. Here is where we call our function that belongs to the quiz brain, and when this line runs, then this line will be replaced by the value of the output. So let's go ahead and capture it inside a constant. So I'm going to call this constant user got it right. And I'm going to set it to equal the output of this function call. So if user got it right is equal to true, it means they got it right. If user got it right is false, it means they got it wrong. And now, instead of checking this whether if user answer is equal to actual answer, we can check if user got it right. Now, because this is already going to be a true or false value, we don't actually have to make any checks to see if it's equal to true or equal to false. As long as the value is a true or false, a Boolean, then we can simply make our check like so. You can, of course, go much further to shorten this code, but always remember to optimize for readability. And readability depends on your level of skill or the people who you're working with. If another programmer was looking at your code, would they be able to easily understand, for example, if I was to shorten this to quizbrain.checkanswer sender.current title? Maybe, maybe not. I'll let you be the judge of that. This part of the code does exactly the same as all of this code, but we've just split it out into several components to make it easier to understand step by step. Next, let's turn our attention to the update UI function. Here, we're grabbing the question text to display, and we're also calculating the user's progress. However, these two things sound like the perfect job for our model, don't you think? As a challenge, I'd like you to use your knowledge of functions to move this logic into the quiz brain. I want you to fix both of these lines of code, 48 and 51, or whatever line your code is on, so that you end up with a view controller that has code that looks like this: quizbrain.getQuestionText. And down here, it should be something like quizbrain.getProgress. And you need to be able to fix the quiz brain to make these two lines of code work. At the moment, they won't because there isn't such a thing as getProgress or getQuestionText, but if you go ahead and modify your view controller to make it look exactly like this, and then complete the challenge by adding the necessary code to the quiz brain. Pause the video now and give that a go. All right, so we know that we need to grab the question text with this method, getQuestionText, inside our quiz brain. So let's go ahead and create this method. Inside our quiz brain, maybe just below our check answer, I'm going to create that new function, getQuestionText, and then I'm going to make sure that this function has an output. And the question text is, of course, a string data type, so that's going to be my output. And what I'm going to return is the question text, which corresponds to the current question number. So I'm going to use my return keyword, and then I'm going to search through my quiz for the one at the position of my question number, and then I'm going to get the text property of that question. So now if we hit save and we go back, and you might need to beat your code with a stick by hitting Command B for it to refresh and update, but this line is now completely error-free and all the bits of code are colored in the right colors. Now let's fix the next one. So we need a method called getProgress in our QuizBrain that returns a floating point number that we can assign as the progress. So if we go back into our QuizBrain and create that function called getProgress, and this of course has to return a float because that's what the progress view requires. Now, in order to work out the progress, we can of course use the equation that we used before, which is the current question number divided by the total number of items inside our quiz array, so quiz.count. And then, because these are integers, we have to first convert them into floating point numbers before we make that division. And now we can return our progress. Now, if we hit save and we go back to our view controller and hit Command B to build, then you can see this line is now passing as well. So well done if you managed to get that right. If you didn't, be sure to review the last lesson on functions with outputs to get a better idea of how it works. The next thing we're going to do is let's deal with the quiz progression functionality. The part that keeps track of the question number should really be inside the QuizBrain because it's kind of a quiz functionality. Let's go ahead and cut it out from here and move it over to our QuizBrain. In our QuizBrain, I'm going to create a new function called nextQuestion, which is going to handle the question progression functionality. And then I'm going to paste the code that I had from before into here, and I can Command A to select and go to structure and reindent to neaten up the code so that it's easier to see. Now that we've removed these lines of code from our view controller, we have to replace it. So at the position where we used to have it, we have to replace it with a call to QuizBrain.nextQuestion so that we pass the baton on over to here. At this point, we've restructured our code quite a bit, and we're slowly starting to conform to the MVC design pattern. You can now see how our model is getting all the quiz-related responsibilities. It's now our QuizBrain that knows all about the quiz questions, not our view controller. It's also our QuizBrain that decides if the user got the answer right, which question comes next, and how far the user has progressed. But notice how we've now got some different errors over here, and it says something about left side of mutating operator isn't mutable. Self is immutable. So what exactly is immutable and what does it mean? If you already know all about this, then feel free to skip the next deep dive, but otherwise head over to the next lesson where we're going to do a deep dive on immutability, and I'll see you on whichever lesson you choose.